Hello everyone, hope you're having the most wonderful day today. Welcome to the Film Insight channel. For today's video, we're going to discuss some more restaurants featured on the UK version of Kitchen Nightmares and reveal how they're doing now. So, sit back, relax, and without further ado, let's get right into the content, guys. The Granary. In a Kitchen Nightmares episode, Gordon Ramsay heads over to the Granary located in Fareham, UK to rescue it from closure. Owned by a man named Nigel Nyadu, he opened the business with the intention of making a fortune. Opening the place back in 2003, he expected the wealthy locals to flock to his exclusive dining club. Sure, to some degree, he was met with relative success when the place first launched since a bunch of celebrities attended. Even though he managed to generate a lot of excitement around the restaurant, none of the patrons returned, which is why the place is currently losing £4,000 a week. As a last-ditch effort to save his business, Nyadu hired a local chef named Martin White to bring his vision of a modern British menu to life. Having little success with this, the owner called out to Ramsay and his team for some professional guidance. Upon his eventual arrival, the famous chef is given a tour of the place and points out that the decor is bland and stiff, which offends the owner deeply. Sitting down soon after to scan the 60-dish menu, Ramsay describes the selection to be silly, but orders a collection of items anyway. After his ghastly meal, the Kitchen Nightmares host is brutally honest about the fact that the food was nasty and far from modern British. Observing the dinner service later on, Ramsay hopes to see how the staff would react to an influx of customers. It's safe to say that they were incapable of doing so since the food was delivered to the tables at a sluggish pace, meals were sent back for their poor quality, and orders piled on like there was no tomorrow. The following day, the famous chef walks around the area to get some feedback from the locals about the restaurant. Most seem to think that the meals are way too expensive and that the service is terrible, so many avoid it. To reduce costs, Ramsay concludes that the restaurant should focus on making simple dishes with locally sourced ingredients. Putting together a menu for the upcoming service that included fresh pork and locally grown vegetables, it was a massive hit with the patrons. Making over £1,500 with the new menu, Nyadu admits that Ramsay was right all along and that things need to change. Hoping to draw more attention to the restaurant, Ramsay and the Granary team hosted a food fair event and impressed the locals with their improved dishes. Fast forward to near the end of the episode, after the famous chef improved the restaurant's decor and menu, the business was finally ready to relaunch. Despite the fact that the reopen was pretty awful, Ramsay still had faith that the restaurant could succeed. Weeks after the taping of this episode, the owner reported that their customer base increased drastically, as did their profits. When Ramsay returned over a month later, he was impressed to hear that the patrons loved the food and service and kept returning for more. As good as this sounds, it wasn't all smooth sailing for the restaurant since it was the target of an arson attack back in December of 2008 and was severely damaged. Somehow, it still stayed open for another year, but Nyadu decided to put it up for sale back in October of 2008 since the damages set them back way too much. The Fish and Anchor. Gordon Ramsay heads over to Lampeter, West Wales to save the Fish and Anchor from impending closure. After winning £700,000 on the football pools, Mike Simonera and his wife Karen converted their fish and chip shop into a full-on restaurant. Unfortunately, since the owners often get into heated arguments with each other, their business has suffered greatly. Supposedly, their fights have gotten so bad in the past that they got themselves into legal trouble. Considering the fact that the restaurant became infamous in the community, the owners decided to call out to Ramsay in hopes that he could turn things around. When he finally arrives, the famous chef is shocked to see one of his recipes on the menu board alongside a mishmash of random dishes from various places. Ordering a minestrone soup that's chunky and weird looking, chicken coma that's terribly messy, and spinach that looks like snot, Ramsay's left with the worst first impression. Giving his feedback immediately after to Mike, being as blunt as possible, the famous chef tells him that he isn't a good cook and shouldn't make dishes that are too challenging. Through some discussion, Ramsay is disappointed to hear that Mike used canned curry sauce for the coma dish, which explains why it was not only messy but bland. Hoping to get some local feedback, the Kitchen Nightmares host takes a look at the business's reviews and learns that the owner fabricated some of them, including one from someone in Afghanistan. Appalled, Ramsay leaves and returns later on for the evening service, which frankly doesn't make him any happier. Since the restaurant's menu is way too large and complex, food takes colossally long to leave the kitchen, but it doesn't exactly help that Mike does one dish at a time. Customers were left to wait for over 2 hours and were snacking on bread, which is understandably frustrating. One bold patron was fed up and decided to march into the kitchen to ask about his food, but was only met with curse words and was asked to leave. Embarrassed by how awful the service was going, Ramsay finds out through a waitress that this was a normal occurrence. By the end of things, only half of the customers got their meals, which the owners could care less about since they disappeared like cowards from the back of the restaurant. Ramsay later points out that the biggest problem is their menu, which is clearly too much to handle, but also that Mike and Karen are too argumentative. The following day, the Kitchen Nightmares host has a chat with Mike and discovers that he has Italian heritage and loved cooking traditional food with his nonna in the past. Hoping to revive his love for Italian cuisine, Ramsay takes the owner to a local farm to pick fresh tomatoes and gets him to cook his Nonna's meatball recipe. Inviting a local rugby team for the evening service, they sample Mike's meatball dish and are impressed with how flavorful it is. As more customers poured in for dinner, Karen decided to go out for a smoke break, but when she finally returned, she made a bunch of mistakes which caused an argument. Following the piss-poor service, Ramsay attempted to act as a marriage counselor and essentially told the couple to keep their private life private. Fast forward to near the end of the episode, after Ramsay revamped the menu to include classic Italian dishes, gave the dining room a makeover, and convinced the couple to be more professional, the restaurant was given the second chance it needed. Over a month later, when the famous chef returned, he was pleased to see that the owners kept the smaller Italian menu that he implemented. Taking a look through the reservation book, Ramsay decided to call a few customers and was proud to hear that they loved the atmosphere and food and didn't hear any fighting. Despite the fact that the business improved greatly thanks to Ramsay's help, the owners decided to put it up for sale a year later for £295,000. It's not exactly clear why they did this, but many claim that the owners started to slip once again and couldn't fully recover from their past reputation. La Parra de Borriana. As our final entry, we're going to cover a restaurant that Gordon Ramsay tried to save called La Parra de Borriana. Owned by a man named Lawrence Davey, he purchased the restaurant with the financial help of his father, who gave him £40,000. 18 months in, he's lost well over £20,000, so to compensate, he added tons of new dishes to the menu. At one point, the items were Mediterranean-centric, but after Davey raised the number of dishes available to 72, they also began to serve Chinese and Turkish meals. Worried that the business wouldn't survive until winter, the owner reached out to Ramsay for some aid. Upon his eventual arrival, the famous chef meets with Davey, who exposes the fact that he's £75,000 in debt. Hungry, the famous chef sits down and scans the menu soon after, but is understandably confused with the wide range of dishes available. Ordering a filet steak kebab that arrives swinging on a hook, Ramsay likens it to the swinging genitalia of a donkey, which is hilarious. Getting a creme catalana for dessert, the famous chef is appalled to see that it's burnt yet runny at the same time. Leaving and returning the following day, Ramsay inspects around and is disgusted to find dog feces in the dining room and thick grease in the deep fryer, so he forces the staff to deep clean the area. Later on, the famous chef blends some of the restaurant's dishes into smoothies in order to show the staff that their flavor combinations are incompatible. This included blending prawns with chocolate and chicken with bananas, which they all thought tasted disgusting. With this in mind, Ramsay highlights that it's not necessary to put a twist on every dish and encourages them to reduce the amount of items on the menu to 12. Fast forward to near the end of the episode, after Ramsay fully implemented his 12-dish Spanish menu, the restaurant's future was looking bright. Weeks after the taping of this episode, the owner revealed that his business finally became profitable and that he managed to pay back some of his debts. A year later, when Ramsay returned, he was disappointed to see that they reverted back to serving average, uninspired food. Ultimately, the restaurant closed down in August of 2008, exactly 2 years after this episode was taped, since nothing had really changed. Well, that'll be all for today's video here on the channel. I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to drop a massive like down below and comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more content like this, and turn on those sweet bell notifications for instant access to our content. Have a good one, guys.